Tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora, welcome to the VUWSA.
I think you have your answer right here. Over the last few months, my work and VUWSA's work has revolved around three important words: student-friendly Wellington. We've worked really hard on this campaign because we believe it's time that students become a big part of the city. With 40,000 tertiary students in the Wellington region, and with tertiary education collectively contributing $2 billion to the local economy each year, students are a huge part of what makes this city tick. Yet often, our city doesn't work for us. We live in cold and damp flats that make us sick. We can barely afford the bus to get to class. It's time that a student-friendly Wellington is put on the city's agenda. That's why this debate is really important. Today, across two campuses, these mayoral candidates will be telling you about what a student-friendly Wellington means to them and to convey to you how much they value students and our votes. To finish briefly, my last message to you is that you need to vote. If even a portion of the student population voted, we'd have the potential to determine the election. We live in a city that is at the heart of democracy, and now it's time for us to exercise that through our vote. Over the next week, we'll be delivering how to vote pamphlets around campus and to student flats. Have a look and make sure you make an informed decision. Cool, thank you very much.
I think you need to give him the microphone, Jono.
Technical difficulties right from the get-go. Always great to start, and thank you for that stirring introduction, Michael. I am Lars Thompson, President of the Victoria University Wellington Politics Society. And it's been a real pleasure being able to organise and be involved with bringing together students to discuss the issues which matter to us. Thank you, Jono, to those folks in the VUWSA efforts this year. And it's a pleasure to see students working to make sure that candidates take our issues into account. Welcome to the candidates and fellow students here and at PIP. It is such a great opportunity for us all. And I do really care about politics. Lots of students care about politics. And yes, there was a time that I didn't care about politics, but it was a very long time ago. It was back all the way in 2005 when I was at primary school and my parents were going on about elections, and I was like, what does it all matter? Why should we care? And I was like, for goodness sake, where's the swing set? Where's the new stuff around my primary school? What's happening to me? And nothing was happening. But that is why there is such a disconnect sometimes between students and politicians. It's not because we're apathetic, it's not because we don't care, it's because we need to hear where these issues influence us, how they will impact our lives. And it'll be really great to see the student issues discussed, debated by this wonderful lineup that we have here today. And when it all finishes up after the debate, you'll have a choice to put forward which candidates you think did the best, who is polling best for you, and the Politics Society will have that poll online, and there'll be a link you can follow, and it'll follow the rules of STV. So it'll be just like what you'll be seeing on Election Day. So thank you very much all for coming, and let's get into this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lars, Jonathan. So I'm going to try and keep this debate relatively informal. I'm not really in the mood for rambling speeches, fibs, or candidates' life stories, so prepare to be interrupted. This afternoon we'll talk about possible solutions for cold, mouldy and damp flats, the cost of public transport, the injustice of flats blacklisted for not sorting their rubbish properly, getting people out to vote, and of course we want to hear from you. So while I do encourage heckling, please keep it constructive and don't forget these people are your guests. If you're a wallflower, or to put it kindly, a social media butterfly, you can get in on the Twitter buzz. The hashtag for today's debate is Students Vote. The speaking order for the opening statements has been decided at random by my mum. So, Joe Coughlin, you're up first.
Okay, well, thank you, Michael. Look, this election isn't actually about the next 3 years. It's about the next 100 and getting Wellington ready for growth so that future generations can prosper and thrive here. I care about students. I've got 6 children. They've got 70 years of a Wellington education between them. One of them's a student here at Vic. One's graduated from Otago, and one's currently at Otago. So I understand your challenges. I understand your issues and your problems, and I want to make Wellington a world-class city with world-class jobs for you and your families in the future.
Thank you very much, nice and tight. Next on the list is Nick Leggett.
Well, kia ora koutou. I'm Nick Leggett. I'm the Mayor of Purirua at the moment, and I have jumped the border to run in Wellington. I'm a former student here at Vic, graduated with a BA in politics. This is what happens to you a few years down the track. I'm running because I think Wellington needs new energy and new leadership. And I also think that being a student-friendly city is more than just words. It's actually about action, it's about political leadership, and it's about students standing up and having a voice throughout the 3 years, not just at election time.
Now we have Nicola Young.
Hi, I'm Nicola Young. I'm currently a city councillor representing Lambton Ward, which is where we are right now. So if you live in Thorndon, Kelburn, Mount Cook, Aro Valley, I'm one of your local councillors. So I grew up in Wellington, and I was a journalist, and I went to spend 20 years in Britain and came back 20 years ago. And I'm standing on a freeze the rates at inflation platform while protecting core services by cutting waste. Now, why do rates matter to you? Well, in the past year, according to the Labour Party, Wellington rates went up by 5.5%. Rates count.
Now we have Justin Lester.
I should probably stop there, it can only get worse. Ngā mihi nui, kia koutou katoa. My name's Justin Lester. I value the importance of an education and a quality education. My mum was a beneficiary. I was the first in family to go to uni. I went down to Otago and then did a Masters in Law over at Heidelberg University. I've spent the last 6 years engaged with the VUWSA community and advocating your interests around council, and actions do speak louder than words. I'm committed to a rental warrant of fitness, getting a local bill through Parliament, and student concession fares to save you guys $950 a year. Those are 2 of the things I'll do, and focus on safety. I just want to acknowledge the great work Izzy O'Neill's done with Thursdays in Black too. Well done, Izzy.
Sure, a shout out to the student population is always a good idea. And now we are moving on to Andy Foster.
Hi, I'm Andy Foster. I've lived most of my life here.
We'll let you start again. We'll even restart the timer there. Just jump onto Justin's mic for the moment.
That won't work for him. Going now? Yeah. Okay, right. Okay, I'll try that again. I'm Andy Foster. I've lived most of my life in Wellington. I did both of my degrees here, an arts degree and a commerce degree. I agree with Justin, the value of an education is absolutely essential. In fact, I even went teaching for a couple of years, but that wasn't my gig. So now I've been a politician for a while, and the real thing here is about making a difference, making what has been a wonderful city even better. I know that many people, many of you will have chosen to come to Wellington because it's a great city to live in, and what I'm standing for is to make what is already a great city even better in so many different ways, whether it's the environment, whether it's a great central city, more public transport, walking, cycling. So those are the kind of things I stand for.
Next up on the list is Keith Johnson.
My microphone works, thanks. I am an economist and a public policy person who's worked in this field for a good period of time. I want to see good practice and good governance. I want to see less wish lists and lolly scrambling by these candidates promising you the earth. And I want to see some more attention given to the widening income and wealth disparities that we've got here in Wellington and New Zealand in general. So I'm standing on the caring about cost, caring about people platform. Thank you.
Last of all, here today we've got Helen Ritchie. Please take the microphone. Jump on. It's like always blow on the pie, but with mayoral candidates, so it's a microphone.
For a safe community.
I think it was done on purpose. Kia ora koutou katoa. I'm Helen Ritchie. I'm the longest serving councillor and I am a former deputy mayor. I hold 4 degrees and 2 diplomas from Massey and from Victoria University. I will take all possible steps to make sure that there is a warrant of fitness for rental housing and to advocate very strongly for lower fares. I want to make sure that for you and for us we have an affordable city. Finally, young people are our future. I embrace you and look forward to your contribution. Kia ora.
You want to use one of ours?
Does this one work? Yeah. Okay. So we begin the substantive part of the debate with the rental warrant of fitness. Now, this is something the Students' Association has been pushing for. They've also asked candidates to sign a pledge to, quote, take all possible steps to ensure Wellington rental properties are covered by a compulsory rental warrant of fitness by 2019. Now, Helen Ritchie, we're going to start with you because I'm told you agree, but you're reluctant to sign the document.
Gosh, Radio New Zealand doesn't do well today. I have signed the document. And I signed the document about 2 months ago. And I signed it again today. So I absolutely agree with this. But I want to say that there is cover in current legislation in case you are not aware of it. The housing regulations require that a landlord provides you in your living room with heating. The council should be regulating that, should be inspecting that. It is not. And of course the Residential Tenancies Act also provides you with some protection. Both. Thank you.
Now, not naughty Radio New Zealand. When did you hand deliver it or send it to them?
I sent it by email, actually, first of all, 2 months ago, and I've just signed it again.
Is that true, Jonathan? No, we've got a flat out no from your president.
Do not vote for him. That is true. It is absolutely true. You're just naughty.
Okay, so
Yeah, you've got
So we'll move down the line here. What are some of the pitfalls with a rental warrant of fitness? Is it the panacea that we're all looking for?
Where do you want to go?
Who wants to go next? Nicola.
So I think a warrant of fitness is a really good idea. I have 2 children who are asthmatic, so I know what damp, mouldy places are like to live in because I've seen the results. But we have to be wary of unforeseen consequences. One of my concerns is that a compulsory warrant of fitness could lead to a reduced supply of flats and accommodation and increased prices. So what we need to do at the same time is work towards having more student accommodation and have the university or the city council helping the university to, by pulling some levers around resource consents, to build more student accommodation of a good quality.
Justin, what do you say to that? I mean, you've been quite vocal about this.
Yes, I'm a huge supporter of this, and my own student experience is part of the reason why. So studying down at Otago, my second year at glandular fever took me out for 3 months, and I could just see the health effects that it would have on students, but also my own family, growing up in a pretty damp, cold, mouldy state house, where I had 2 brothers that got ear infections. As a result, couldn't even swim at the local pool. Then I went to Germany and studied over there, and much colder, minus 20 degrees in winter, and yet because of good quality regulation, they have good quality houses, warm, dry, central heating. As a requirement for a landlord for a student to move in, they have to relay the carpet and they have to paint the tenancy. This is good quality stuff, and you know what? It worked because you led from the front, you led from central government and from local government. Landlords had no option but to do this if they wanted to rent out their house, and they are making money from it, so it just makes sense.
Andy, you're a details man.
do the big picture as well. We'll do both.
Andy is a details man, so is this something that the council can feasibly do?
I think we need legislative assistance there. So the government has started, but it's only a start. And obviously the Labor Party has a bill in the House at the moment which will take that a lot further, which I think is a really good thing. If they do that, we're in a much better position to be able to, because we should not be having houses that make you sick. We don't do that for any other product, so it doesn't make any sense whatsoever that you're not well insulated, well ventilated, well heated, and so on. My son's an asthmatic, and I know that asthma is a major issue in New Zealand, and obviously if you're in a cold, damp house, that makes that much, much worse. So very, very important to make sure that we're... And the other thing I should say is, Nicola talked about unforeseen, or you talked about unforeseen circumstances. We put warrants of fitnesses on cars. Why do we do that? Because we want them to be safe. So what is the difference between that and a house?
What is the difference between that and a house? Do you want to explain, Nick?
No.
No, you don't want to explain?
But what I do want to say is that we have seen in the last couple of decades the return of third world diseases to children and young people in New Zealand. A lot of that is about housing quality. What I want to say is that Andy's right. It's not just something the council can do. The council is an administrator of regulation, and the legislation that covers us are written in about 1947 and 1956. I don't think even Helen Ritchie was on the council then. And what we've got to do is hold the hand of government, because it costs money for a council to oversee the regulations and make sure every property is up to standard. So we've got to have a bill that covers the whole country and gives councils funded mandates to be able to actually keep these standards up so people can live in warm, safe, dry houses.
Moving on to Keith. Keith, you've got a background in policy. Is this the right way forward?
Well, I work with Housing New Zealand. About 500,000 people get the accommodation supplement. So clearly it's a big issue, and it's a widening issue with widening income differentials. So I just say this is a national problem as well. When I first came here, I thought, well, why do people dress so skimpily? And I finally sussed out that the early settlers were largely Scotsmen and Scotswomen who thought they were in Australia. But we've got to get over that, and we've got to get warm, we've got to get healthy. Thanks.
So we'll move now to Joe. I understand you've signed the pledge, but reading your response to Renters United, it didn't seem like you were fully on board.
Well, I'm glad you raised that, actually, because Renters United actually got that wrong, so thanks for reminding me. I'll have to correct it. Look, I did sign the pledge. As I say, I've got student children. I was a student myself at Otago. Absolutely, I think that we should be, living in houses that are appropriate, and, there should be standards. It's about, as you've already heard from the other speakers, it's about, how those are going to be, how the regulation's going to work, who's going to do the enforcement, who's going to pay for it. So there's issues there. But I would just also say that I think it's also an issue of a wider housing supply issue. And as a council, what we need to be able to do is make sure that we get good supply and choice of housing options in the city, not just for students, but for everybody. And that's why we need to look at things like medium density housing, the apartmentisation of the inner CBD, special housing areas, and affordable social housing. We have a whole lot of social housing in the city, so there's a bigger picture there, because of course if there's plenty of choice, why would you be renting a dreadful house? So I do support in principle.
John,
I have signed it.
Just jumping in there, you've held the economic portfolio for the last 6 years.
Yep.
Was there more that you could be doing in that role to be getting some of this across the line?
Yeah. Well, we've had huge growth in the CBD in Wellington. It's amazing. Our planning rules have allowed us to basically become like a little Manhattan. We've got all these apartments now, 15,000 people living in the CBD. Fantastic. We've signed a special housing area accord with government. We're setting up an urban development agency to develop potentially large tracts of land up Adelaide Road and Kent and Cambridge Terrace, where we'll see more development there. We've made it possible for developers to provide student accommodation and office blocks all along the terrace. So, we're doing our bit, and it's fantastic that people want to come to Vic. Growing university, it's great, and we need to make sure that we can accommodate so that we don't have a situation at the beginning of the year where there just simply weren't enough beds for the number of students.
Now this one's an open question. Does it need to be Wellington specific? Nick touched on the fact that perhaps it's more something that central government should be doing. Was that correct? Partially. Local government New Zealand is working on getting that across the line. So how much of this needs to be built into, say, the district planning laws, and how much of this is just making it happen? Justin?
So Wellington's taken a leadership position on this. We are one of the councils alongside Dunedin that's part of the voluntary warrant of fitness, but it does need leadership. At the moment, central government is just not prepared to move. So if they're not prepared to move, and I'd like to see them do so, then we have to do so as a council. We shouldn't just shirk the responsibility, pass the buck. The central government said, oh, we can't do anything. In my mind, we need leadership. We've got the Healthy Homes Guarantee Bill. That could change things at a central government level. I hope it'll get the numbers to go through. But if it doesn't, I'm not going to sit on my hands. I'll take a local bill. I want to get Peter Dunn to sponsor it, because if we get Peter Dunn's vote, we get the votes in Parliament to get the support for it. And that's how we force change here in Wellington.
Central government must take action, legislative action. Our best way of doing this is to ensure that there is a local bill, that we as a council get Grant Robertson to support a local bill. But before we do that, we need to make sure that our council ensures that there is compliance already. That could be done tomorrow. Compliance with the housing regulations, compliance with the housing regulations.
It can't retrofit that.
Retrofit which?
It can't retrofit current regulations onto old housing stock.
It's not retrofitting. There is existing legislation for existing housing stock that makes sure, first of all, there is legislation in relation to insulation now, which will be in 2019, but there is also legislation that ensures that should be heating in the living room in all houses.
This question, just so that I can relay it, was a question about, does that take into account the cost of heating those places? Because it's so expensive to heat.
You're absolutely correct, and it is one of the challenges related to the rental warrant of fitness. The rental warrant of fitness is likely to say there needs to be some kind of heating all over in the house, but the students will need to pay.
Just quickly from the rest of the candidates, what percentage of Wellington's rentals were recently deemed dangerously damp? Just shout it out.
20.
It was about 90%. 90? No, sorry, failed the rental warrant of fitness. About 90% failed one aspect of the rental warrant of fitness voluntary assessment, which we undertook with landlords.
Yeah. The figure comes out as over half.
Based on what?
Just quickly, from the audience, any of you guys think that your rental or your flat is damp, dangerously damp? Needs a rental warrant of fitness?
No, not too clear then, is it?
It's quite a few hands. Quite a few votes, perhaps.
Right, so these guys.
We'll move on to electoral engagement. So this is another one for the audience. Who here is enrolled? Put your hands up.
Oh, well done.
And now keep your hand up. Keep your hand up if you're enrolled at your current address.
What about who here is from Wellington?
It's not bad. That's not bad. It's probably better than I was at that age. So, candidates, what have you done to help people get enrolled? Start with Nick. Your hand's up.
Oh, well, I haven't done a lot, to be honest. I haven't done a lot to help get people enrolled. What I have done is championed e-voting over the last few years, over the last 5 years. We got to a point where we thought the government were going to trial it this year, because most young people, hell, most old people, don't interact with a post box any longer. They do stuff on their phones, on their devices. That's what we need for true direct engagement, and we need to open up all the opportunities for democracy, and e-voting is a really good start for that, and we actually need young people to help us with that as we push on, because the government said it was too risky at this stage. We've got to keep fighting on that.
We'll jump down the end to Keith.
I've spent a lot of time trying to involve people in politics here in Wellington. I have a website, Keith Johnson Wellington NZ. On that, there are about 150 articles about Wellington City and about its politics. You can get a good read there. You can get my opinions. They're independently minded opinions, like a typical Wellingtonian. And I firmly believe that we can make a real difference by using the modern media, using the internet to popularize politics and get people involved. Thanks.
Is it realistic using a blog to engage people in voting? What's your readership like?
I have about 900,000 page views on one metric, 1.9 million on another. I'm read in over 100 countries. I'm in correspondence with people from a very wide range of different backgrounds and countries.
Justin, you had your hand up.
Yes, and I agree with Nick. Nick led in Porirua online voting, and likewise, and I did the same in Wellington. And so we put up $100,000 in our budget. We wanted to be one of the trial councils to have online voting. We thought we could make it work. We ticked all of the boxes, and unfortunately we were told that it wasn't going to happen this year by central government. The other thing I've done to engage voters is I've personally called 11,000 households in Wellington over the course of the last 6 months to tell people about local issues. Half my volunteers are here today, so a big thank you to you. 11,000 I've done, and 36,000 we've just clicked over in terms of the campaign generally. So that's how we're getting out. We're on the ground, we're door knocking, we're phone canvassing to let people know what the issues are and to get their feedback.
Here's the thing though, what is it that stops young people from enrolling? Is it you? Is it your policies? Is it people like myself in the media? Nicola?
Do you mean enrolling or do you mean voting?
Enrolling and voting.
So, well, it's hard for me to know why anyone would not vote because I've voted for everything I possibly could all through my life. But let me give you an example of what happens with politics and why it's good to get involved. When I first stood for council, your then VUWSA president, Rory McCourt, grabbed me one night after Backbenchers, the TV program, and said, I want to talk to you about bus fares. And my eyes absolutely glazed over. Anyway, we had several meetings, and he got me onto the bus fares. The fact that Wellington has the most expensive bus fares. So the then VUWSA president, followed by Rick and now Jono, have been incredibly active with me as a local councillor over this whole bus fares thing. And so I couldn't get councillors to support me. So with Sarah Free, who is a Green councillor, she and I both made representations to the regional council with Rory McCourt in my ear to stop the then proposed bus fare increase. And we managed to get it stopped. So that's how politics works. Your president, worked with local councillors. That's the point of being involved.
Nicola, if you just want to stay standing for a moment, because a lot of your rhetoric revolves around rates and ratepayers, and that can be exclusive for renters. They don't feel like they're quite so engaged in that process, even though their rent still pays rates. So what in your rhetoric could change that would make it easier for people to engage with what you are doing here?
It's hard for me to say. The thought of it being rhetoric is quite something. I mean, the fact that in the past year, Wellington rents have gone up by 5.5%. So we've now just had this big rates increase going through. So your rents are going to go up. I mean, that's your pocket. I mean, do you want your rents to become more expensive when the quality of the housing isn't improving, or do you want them to be frozen? So that comes down to that. Would you rather have the money for your rent, or borrow more for your student loan, or have more money at the weekends or for your books?
Okay, we'll jump down to Helen now, and then to Andy.
Thank you. So the question was, what's stopping people from voting, young people? Very quickly, I believe very strongly in participatory democracy, and I'm going to come back to that. Secondly, having bagged Radio New Zealand at the beginning, I want to say that Radio New Zealand is actually making quite an effort to have discussions about local government and about mayoral campaigns and so on. Our media, though, is in danger. So we have to look at quite different ways of voting. The future is definitely digital. The future will be e-voting, but it will also be, and already is, e-participation, social networking, and I will give you just one good example. Some of you
Your
may
Twitter
know...
handle?
Sorry?
Would it be your Twitter handle?
Could be, but no. Action Stations contributes enormously now to our democracy over the internet and with petitions.
That's a little bit of a sidetrack there, Helen.
No,
we'll jump across to Andy. Andy, what was your response here?
I guess the first thing is that I completely agree with with electronic voting. We have to go digital. The number of people I know, for example, who are not in the city or not even in the country during the voting period, they can't vote. It becomes almost impossible for them to participate, and those are often people who do want to participate. Now, I'm going to guess that the reason that a lot of people don't participate in local government elections where they do in central government is they may well be moving around the country themselves, and therefore they feel less connection to the community in which they happen to live at this year, but they might be living in another community next year, so it doesn't matter quite as much to them. That's a hypothesis, but I suspect that's true. But I think the thing that we need to do is we need to make sure people understand what the council does and why it's important. Because every day, every one of you will use all kinds of different services that are provided by either the city council or the regional council, and it does matter. And it does matter the direction that we take. I mean, you know, all the issues around sustainability, for example, the way we get around, the water we use, all of those things are council. So it matters, and we need to communicate that to people, but better than we do, because I don't think a lot of people really get what council does and why it's important.
Joe, I expect that you could increase youth voting turnout by 100-fold if you just got all your kids to get 3 friends to do it.
Oh, ha ha ha. Well, just to make it really scary, I've got about 60 first cousins, and you know the story just goes on. So yeah, if the family just showed up, that'd be good. Look, it's not actually just a youth issue, to be honest. It's a wider issue than that. And, you know, we have a low voter turnout, under 40% right across the board. So sometimes I just wonder if it's because actually, you know, we're all ticking along, we're all getting by, and nothing is so bad that it's galvanising us to make a sea change or to feel like we need to get on board and get engaged. In this particular campaign, I must say my Facebook skills have increased about 1,000%. I've really tried to get out there with social media, tried to have an engaging campaign, you know, the whole Go Joe, 4 lanes to the plains, toot for a second tunnel, trying to be really active on Facebook and to push the messaging out there and you know, little videos and all sorts of things so that people can sort of grab onto something. But it does concern me, though. You know, you're going to be receiving your voting papers in the mail. You've got to understand how to vote. It's not just a tick box exercise. You've got to rank the candidates 1 to 8. And then you've got to get off your chair and actually go and find a post box. And actually, that is my biggest concern, because where are all the post boxes in Wellington? Because a whole lot of them have actually been removed.
Thank you.
So, you know, good luck.
And I understand VUWSA has a bit of a campaign coming up about how to vote in these elections.
Is that called Find the Post Box?
You've got to find a post box.
There's a post box in
At
the
least
hub.
you've got one.
Okay, just quick fire among the the candidates. What's the cost of a single zone fare on the bus?
Cash or snapper?
I have both options in front of me.
166 snapper, $2 cash. Would have been $2.50, but for the fact we fought for that fare.
Now, what is the maximum student allowance from StudyLink? You can give me this either for living costs or allowance. Do you know? So living costs, it's the borrowed one, I understand, is $176.86. That's the maximum. What's the average rent for a single room in a 3-bedroom flat in Kelburn, Ardor Valley?
$190.
Yeah, $191.66. So students are behind before they even start. So that's why public transport is a crucial thing here. Who wants to kick off this part of the debate? Start with Justin.
Yes, our public transport has been a big part of my campaign. It's been at the heart of my student-friendly policy as well. That's working with regional council to freeze fares on public transport for the next 3 years, to have student concession fares, so working towards a 50% reduction on student fares. So if you're travelling 2 zones, you'll save $950 a year. I see there's a big cost of your living expenses, but also a big opportunity, because it's the more that you guys are on the bus or on the train, the less likely you are to drive and to take cars off the road as well. So I want to make it easy for you and want Wellington to be a student-friendly city. I mean, you go away over the summer and the city just drops off. You know, it lacks that buzz, that hum, that vibe. And want to make sure that people want to come here. You know, living in Heidelberg and living in Dean at Otago, there was that sense it was a real student focus.
Out of interest, Justin, Paul Swain is standing unopposed. How do you plan on getting this done? He's been in opposition for years.
By having a majority. So
He's
one
a
person
regional
can vote
council
against it.
candidate.
We've already talked to Chris Laidlaw, he's the current chair. I know Sue Keechley's here, was here. We've just got to get in there. So it comes down to you guys as well. You've got a massive catchment of student votes. Make sure you vote for those ones in favour of student concession fares, and we'll get it done.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's appalling actually that this is the only city in New Zealand that doesn't have student fare, and I think that has to be rectified by the regional council. And I agree, the numbers are there if the election plays out in the way we thought. And you know, there are actually ways. When the trolley buses come offline, there'll be $1 million a year savings to the regional council. I've said publicly they should hand that back to users, and the first place to start should be a student discount.
Does anyone have any idea of what this might cost? No, the discount.
No, but I'll tell you what, the interesting thing is the regional council over-subsidises trains like the Wairarapa and things, and every time you take a bus in central Wellington, a one-section ticket, you are paying far more than you should be because those fares are under-subsidised. So, I mean, the first thing they could do is give the 50-50 split of subsidy to fare, which you don't get. At the moment, you're paying 60% of the fare, whereas train passengers are paying 40%.
Joe?
Not many compared to buses.
Oh, sorry, Keith, I didn't see your arms up there.
I don't know what the possibility is for off-peak concessions. That would certainly be worth looking into. But, you know, the cost is potentially enormous. There are 40,000 tertiary students in Wellington. I did some calculations on the possibility of giving you relief on fees, such as being given to the students of the Southern Institute of Technology. That would be, at a very conservative estimate, for 21,000 students here in Wellington, would raise rates by 80%. So what I'm saying is that you need good economic policy analysis on these issues. We can't just promise things off the top of our heads.
Joe, we'll go to you and then Andy and then...
Yeah, look, I think that's right. And I mean, sometimes it's about being a little bit more creative about the funding. I mean, actually, just as a matter of interest, how many people here catch the bus? Okay, every day to university.
How many of you are happy with how much you have to pay for the bus and don't have to scrimp on other things like food to do so?
Can I just finish my point? So one thing is that I think it's Palmerston North actually, there are universities around the country that have actually cut a deal with their councils to actually subsidise bus fares. So that would be an interesting conversation to have with Victoria Council. Yeah, I think we will advocate and lobby where we can to the regional council, but ultimately it's their call.
Andy.
Yeah. And look, we have, as a council, not just a couple of councils, but we have as a council said, look, our bus fares are at the top end, and maybe they need to come down a little bit. Now, the good news is that the regional council is planning on bringing down the off-peak bus fares by 25%. That's a start, and that will happen in mid-2018 when they do all the new bus routes, bus network, etc. So they are listening, and they've also frozen the fares for the last 3 years. So we're going to keep on pushing them, but ultimately this is a decision that you need to make the decisions about who your regional council representatives are, because they're the ones who have to stick their hands up. Whatever we say, all we can do is to advocate. They are the ones who are going to make the decisions. And Joe's right also about universities being involved. Maybe you want to also push the university here, and maybe we want to push the university here to be involved in that, because it's about a $3 million, I think, impost that the regional council was talking about.
Yeah, well,
so
in a story that I read, Paul Swain was quoted as saying a 50-cent discount for each student would cost $5 million.
Yeah, it depends on discount, yeah.
Helen?
Certainly we should, as a council and as mayor, it's very important that we advocate for lower fares. The cost will be considerable, there's no question about that, and that will impact on rates, which might impact on your rent. So it seems that you're in a kind of a no-win situation. The situation that I faced as a student in my first undergraduate degree was that I lived in Nainai and travelled for 3 hours. Then I decided that the travel was too much, also expensive, so I lived in a shed on the terrace. Thank you.
I feel like there's a story in there, but I don't know if we want to hear it right now.
It is still there actually, and it was entirely, the landlord was acting entirely illegally. I heard him have a discussion with the council inspectors while I was inside. It is still there, and I can point it out to you if you want it.
Now, this is a new one. This one I had not heard about. Areas like Ardor Street and the Terrace have a fair number of student residences. VUWSA tell me that those areas are among those who have been most affected by the blacklisting of flats. Now, blacklisting prevents households from being delivered free recycling bags. Andy, you're a details man and you've had the transport and urban development portfolios in some guise or another for, what is it, about a decade now. Is this practice justified?
Well, the joy is this is not part of the Transport and Urban Development Committee, and I can do the big picture too, Michael. So look, we've got about 100 to 150 areas around the city which are blacklisted, and they're not all student areas by any stretch of the imagination, but we want people to recycle. We want people to reduce, to reuse, and to recycle, because we don't want, good stuff ending up going to the landfill. So if you are in that situation and you want to have to be able to recycle, just ring the council up. They've told me that they will come up and they will work with you. They will show you how it's done. They'll even bring you the bags there to do that. The other thing is that through the Student Association, there are discounted rubbish bags available too. So there's a lot of work which is being done between the council, the Student Association, to make sure that A, you can get your rubbish dealt with, and B, you can get your recycling, because we want people recycling.
We have a question from the audience.
This is my grandmother lived.
We'll sort that out for you later on, because I've arranged it for other people. So Milton, I have been dealing with other people. It has been done. The council's gone up, dropped the bags off, and they're happy as.
So it's not insurmountable. So would you
Absolutely
end it,
not.
Nicola?
No, we have another issue, especially in areas like Ardor Street, where there's a very high student population. And some months ago, about a month ago, I sent out this brochure, and in it says, I will bring back end-of-term collections for things like sofas and stuff like that, because a lot of students don't have transport, they can't take it to the tip. So end-of-term collections in high-density student areas will help get rid of some of that really bulky stuff.
It's already being done. It's already being offered. Staff are already onto it.
Good.
They're quick.
Tell them in Ardor Street, they don't know about it.
Term hasn't finished yet.
Okay, here's one of the things. If students have just moved to Wellington, they've just moved into a brand new flat, and that flat is already blacklisted, why should it be such a process? Nick?
Well, it shouldn't, but there aren't so many of these flats, I suspect, that the council can't engage with them one by one and work through with new occupiers on how to deal with the rubbish. It's not that difficult. I mean, the council's got a lot of resources, it's got a lot of staff, and with better communication and more on-site kind of work, I reckon it would be easily sorted.
How did flats get blacklisted? Jono, I'm going to bring you up here for this one, but I understand it's that you use your recycling bags wrong and you use your rubbish bags wrong.
It's because the recycling's
Yeah,
full of
basically,
rubbish.
and usually the tenants have left after that, and then you move in, and then you're still blacklisted. So that's what happened to my flat as well.
Why is it that people have to pay $14 for council rubbish bags?
That would be 5 rubbish bags.
Justin?
Yeah, there has to be
Yeah, so the yellow rubbish bags, while we do it funds itself. So the yellow rubbish bags pay for the whole collection service. Recycling is free. The incentive around that is we want you to not use as much waste or use as least waste as possible, and preferably all recycling. There are things we can do better around that as well. We had a good point raised at a debate last night when we should make our plastic yellow recycling bags biodegradable. Little things that we can do to encourage waste. I mean, in the UK, in the last year, they've introduced a 5p charge for plastic bags. It's reduced consumption of plastic bags by 85%. But we'd love to do the same in New Zealand. At local government, we ask central government to do that. It's not their focus at the moment, but I think we can do the same in our country.
Can I just say, I think Nick's point was really good about the need for education. I think the trouble is you have students coming to the city and the recycling and rubbish system is completely different to what they've been used to. You know, every city has a different system, and they get there and there's no bags that are there because the previous tenants have been blacklisted, and then it just sort of, there's so many things to get used to when you're a student in your first few weeks, and that sort of drops off the list. So some door knocking and some really high quality one-on-one education from council to get that process going a bit would be really important.
Rory,
Yes,
maybe
there
the student union can help as well because it's a two-way thing.
And I understand that the staff will also be up at the orientation day, and I think one of the other things that we can do is we can provide essentially a welcome to Wellington package for students. So if you're not from Wellington, we can tell you all the kind of things that are on offer here, so how to recycle, etc. But also, for example, the staff said that that some of the transport guys go up there and talk about how to enrol in safe motor scooter use. So, you know, the whole lot of things that we can do, and that's, you know, a welcome to Wellington package.
But so also, could your landlord help you? Your landlord could tell you what it is that you need to live in the house that you are renting. We used to have dusties. We used to have big, brawny, handsome men who leapt over fences and picked up the one bin, or maybe it would be now 2 bins. You wouldn't have to pay anything, and got rid of the rubbish. And it also used to be a charge on rates. So if we had that system, you would not have to pay for rubbish collection. The landlord would have to pay. That was the system. Now it's a user pay system. You have to pay for these non-biodegradable bags, which is unacceptable. Thank you.
Fantastic. Now we'll just move on to almost questions from the floor. But I want to know, because many of the students in this room will leave Wellington after studying, what is it that you will do now as Mayor that will have them coming back to an affordable city where they can build or buy a home, start a family, start a business? Keith?
I've got a son who's in Berlin. He went to Wellington College. He's an ICT specialist. He's got a Swiss girlfriend. They want to come back to Wellington. They can't find anywhere to live. It's too expensive. It's ridiculous, the situation you face. If you want to stay here, it's too costly. So we need to address this whole issue of affordable housing and social housing. Thanks.
Joe?
Oh, look, I'll be continuing on with the package that we're doing at the moment, which is about promoting Wellington as a business investment destination. It's about encouraging people to come and set up their businesses here. It's about telling New Zealand and the rest of the world about the amazing tech sector that we've got here in Wellington with $2.5 billion and 15,000 jobs. I'll be investing in infrastructure for the future so we can get around our city, whether it's in cars and public transport. I'll be making it livable, you know, investing in the mountain bike trails so that we have the best capital city in the world and people actually want to come and live and work here. And of course the houses will actually ultimately be affordable because we'll have more housing choice through all of that development I talked about earlier in the CBD, out further through special housing areas, through medium density housing, through apartments and whatever. So absolutely be pushing Wellington as a place to come and get a world-class job.
Justin?
Now, funnily enough, it was at an event just like this 17 years ago in 1999, and I was sitting beside a friend of mine from my German class called Elizabeth, and we were watching Helen Clark and Winston Peters, Jenny Shipley, Rod Donald, and they were debating the topics of the day. Funnily enough, perhaps turn and look to the person beside you, because 17 years later, we're now married with 2 kids living out of suburbia in Wellington. That could well be your future. What will I do to encourage people to come here? Look, put your hand up if you're born in Wellington. And put your hand up if you're born outside of Wellington. There we go. The overwhelming majority, 2/3 of Wellingtonians aren't born here. You come here for one reason only, a well-paid job. A well-paid job, you settle, you raise your family, and good lifestyle too. So it's about the economy, it's about having good quality jobs. I want to focus on bridging that scheme, so employment pathway programs from VIC through to corporates and public sector and social enterprise. But you need to have a job to come here. That's why we need to invest in things like the Movie Museum. That's why we need to consider things like the airport extension and the long-term future of the city, because we want to be connected to the world, but it's about getting you guys jobs here so you can raise your families.
Nick?
Yeah. Wellington has to be a city where all of us can live up to our potential. That's actually the aim, and that is not just economic potential, that's about living in a compassionate and inclusive neighbourhood. It's about being able to get round. It's about being able to make the most and add to the arts and the cultural vibe of the city. And that's my aim as mayor. Both Joe and Justin have talked about an airport extension. It's great. We need to reach out to new markets for Wellington. We need this for to be a place where people come back to work, and work in not only a private sector but a strong public sector as well, because that's where a lot of you I know will be going. And it's about ensuring that more kids get to tertiary or vocational education, and that we are building a wide economy that includes most people and allows most people to flourish.
Andy?
Look, there's three things I think. One is, in your question, one is homes, one is jobs, and one is just the lifestyle that the city's got to offer. Every time we do a quality of life assessment, we are the top of any of the major metropolitans in the country, and that's it's all the things about being able to access nature very easily, the mountain biking, the fabulous downtown, all of those things. Joe's talked about the central city. In fact, it's one of those small picture things, Michael, that I've had responsibility for, the planning rules that have allowed our central city to become the dynamic mixed-use place that it is. We need to connect employment and education better, because there is a disconnect there. I think summer internships are an opportunity there, so that if over summer you become connected to a particular employer, and that connection might go on to a full-time career. We've got fantastic emerging businesses which we're supporting through the Biz Dojo, for example, and Toipaniki.
It's more about what you would have done, but
these are things we need to keep on building on. And so one of the things which I would like to do is, because we've got a lot of small businesses which are emerging, they need capital. Can we connect those with the people who actually have capital, so through some sort of a venture capital fund? So there's a lot of things that we can do to make what is already a great city even better.
Thank you. Nicola?
So I'm not going to repeat everything that everybody said, because it's all much the same kind of thing, but I would just say to you, just imagine Wellington if the Pied Piper of Hamelin came in here and took all the students away. The city would be completely desolate. So the students are really important, but we've got to make sure we keep you after you've graduated. Not all of you, but a lot of you, because too many of you go on to find opportunities elsewhere. That's why economic growth is important, so we have high quality jobs to keep you here.
Helen Ritchie.
Thank you very much. Very briefly, I want Wellington to remain the coolest little capital in the world. It is now, and it will be. I agree with everything that's been said, but I want to emphasise three things. Affordable quality homes, which is your homes as well. Making sure that the airport runway extension is not ratepayer funded, and that that money is released for quality housing and for a whole range of other activities. And thirdly, to promote, my portfolio has been the natural environment, the town belt, the accessible walks, and so on, biodiversity, pest-free Wellington, and so on. Promote nature, promote the accessibility of nature, promote the greening of the inner city, which is really important, and finally jobs. Jobs in health, significant. Jobs in education, significant. Jobs in IT. The future is in your hands, and we need to understand and rely on the different way in which you live your lives, and the different way in which you work from the present generation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone here today. We're going to open up to some questions from the floor. I believe, Harrison, are you here? Harrison is not here. We're going to go to Leah. Is Leah here? Because they're here. Come on up, Leah. Come on up.
Hello, my name's Leah, and I'm a music student. I'm a big believer in the arts being a source of culture and community. So I was wondering if the candidates could briefly discuss how they envision their city council playing a role in local cultural and art projects, venues, events and groups. So as a mayor, would their focus be on attracting the big acts, or would they be interested in supporting and developing cultural or community groups and events? Thank you.
Start with Nicola there, and then to Joe.
Okay, so the arts are Wellington's beating heart, and one of the things that's happened is that they've had a lot of stealth cuts because money's been transferred from one section of the arts to the other. So, for example, Chamber Music New Zealand, which is a huge part of our musical ecosystem. You've got a wonderful school of music here, they were going to get $40,000 from the Regional Amenities Fund, was taken and put into the Festival of the Arts. We need to really put money into the arts. It's a core role of local government.
Joe.
Well, of course, we are the arts and cultural capital of New Zealand, and as Chair of Economic Growth and Arts, I'm a huge supporter and very keen to ensure that we always underpin what's happening in the city in terms of arts. I mean, it's a major balancing act. You know, we have put a considerable amount of money, actually an additional $3 million every year into making sure we can get big acts and performances into the city and underpin a whole lot of other cultural and local festivals that come under that umbrella. So look, we've just got to keep the balance right. But the other thing I wanted to mention is that I'm a big proponent of a new concert venue for Wellington, a 10 to 12,000 seat Vector Arena. I'll be pushing very hard to make that happen. It's quite challenged because there's only limited sites we can put that on, but we've certainly worked hard with the stadium. They think it's a great idea. It would mean we can get more acts to the city, and I think going forward the city, really needs that. But look, we've got to keep investing in the arts, no doubt about it.
Thanks, Joe. Justin.
Thank you. Yes, I've made a very strong commitment. If I'm the Mayor, I will be taking the arts portfolio. Because I think it needs leadership. We are broadly known as the arts capital, but there is a risk that we'll lose some of that. Creative New Zealand's reduced some of its funding, and Auckland is now attracting some of our arts performers up to Auckland. So that's why I want to have the arts portfolio for two reasons: to provide more financial assistance, and that would be prioritisation. We spend $45 million a year on economic development. Only a small proportion goes to the arts. That balance needs to be shifted because the arts make up a huge part of our economic development. That's one thing. And the second thing is we've just signed off some terms and conditions. The Victoria University Tukoki School of Music will be based down at the Town Hall. We'll get that strengthened. That project will be getting underway will be announced shortly and getting underway next year. And so that will be arts right in the heart of Civic Square and in the middle of our city too.
Jumping across to Nick.
Yeah, I think it is. There are so many arts graduates, both at Massey and Vic, and it's about having a pathway where they can stay in Wellington and work. So it's actually creating creating jobs, allowing people to use their skills and set up businesses. So arts for entertainment, arts for performance, fantastic. Arts in and around neighbourhoods and actually pushing out money. I'm a big believer that you actually can devolve resources from the council to people in communities, and arts is a community. So less kind of council standing over with the checkbook and telling people what to do, and more actually giving money to people so they can be creative, because after all that's what it is a creative industry.
Keith, are you angling up?
I'm a member of the Society of Authors, so I'm sort of involved with some of this. The grassroots don't get a fair shake of the dice when it comes to asking for $15 million to put a fancy fish face facade on the movie museum. That $15 million is there. There are lots and lots of very creative people in Wellington. I've picked up a few stories of these, of people in Island Bay, some wonderful people, singers, songwriters, artists. They could do with a lot more support than they're getting. And at the moment we are penny wise but pound foolish with a lot of the work, a lot of the allocation of resources to big ticket projects.
Thank you. Helen and then Andy.
We are the cultural creative capital of New Zealand, as you've heard. But I want to focus on the informal music world of which I am a part. Wellington is I live downtown. Wellington is an amazing cultural buzz all of the time. And it doesn't happen in the big ticket things. It happens in the pubs, it happens in the cafes, it happens on the street, it happens all over the place. Arts is not only music. It is also our sculptors. It is also our literature, our wonderful authors, our wonderful poets that live in this town.
So how will you
It is about dance, it's about film, it's about theatre, and from the council's point of view, it is also about ensuring that there is seeding money so that Toi Puniki, which is a hub of new budding artists, can continue to be supported with the 29 artists that are there. I can tell you more about that later. Seeding money, facilitating, encouraging, big ticket, not so sure. Let's be a creative capital, spontaneous. Thank you.
Thank you. And then quickly, please,
But
Andy.
Council spends an enormous amount of money on supporting the arts, and we should continue to do that. One thing I particularly wanted to focus on, which is the town hall and the opportunities to come out of that. So the university and NZSO, so we want to get them into the town hall area. We've got Whitireia Welltech just up the road. We've got Cordon Bleu in that area as well. Toi Paniki, which Helen's just mentioned, the opportunity of bringing Toi Paniki from what's currently a leased space at the top of Cuba Street down into that area, and just imagine the creative hub that putting all of those together will be. And I'd like to see Tiaro Park there as effectively as a stage for performance. So we're not just having you guys performing inside buildings, but you're out there showing what you can do and just adding to the vibrancy and the vibe of Wellington. I think it'd be absolutely fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Do you want to say anything else?
Yeah, thanks. Promises are good. It will just be great to see them in action because we like jobs.
Cool. Good one.
Thanks, Leah. Is Adam Fern here? Adam Fern, are you here? Adam Fern, I don't think he's here. Ted's not here. Is Sam Clark here? No. Is anyone who submitted a preordained question that we were like, oh yeah, we really like this question because we didn't think of it ourselves? Are you here? You're not? Okay, look, guys, I'm sure that some of the candidates will have a few more minutes free if you do want to chat with them at the close of this. But I would just like to say one last maybe minute or so of words. Because local body politics is often seen as kind of the lesser cousin of national body politics. And while there may be some truth to that, it's also true that local authorities govern upwards of $120 billion worth of assets. And when they're not managed right, it can bring a whole town to its knees, or to the toilet to sing the ceramic chorus in the case of Havelock North. Yes. And for many of you, this will be your first opportunity to vote. And so while I'm not an imperialist saying you must, take the time to think carefully about what it is the elderly person down the road might want to see in the city, because it's probably a bit different to what you want to see and what will keep you here. So who you vote for could make this city a place you want to stay in or a place you want to leave. So thank you all for coming out today, candidates included, and also the other various candidates that are in the audience. Your voting papers will be in the post on Friday. That's it from me, but you've got a couple more weeks to make your decision. Happy voting.
Thank you. That was okay.
Well done, Michael.
Thank you very much.
Hello. Just a reminder as well, people, that there will be a poll going up on the event for this, which will allow you to rate who did well, who do you think secured your student vote, and we'll be able to see what students think about these candidates. So please check that out. Thank you.